All right, guys. So I found a willing participant that would be interested in having some conversation about anything completely random. So go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Hey, I'm Charles. I was just watching a TikTok and I clicked on the Omega link.
Yeah, right. So you're essentially here on accident. Yeah, that's great. Great to hear. So yeah, would you like to talk about anything? Like, usually I talk about some things that are usually going on in our geopolitical sphere, and try to see if we can have conversation about some of the political aspects of the benefits of being involved in those areas. But today, I want to introduce a completely random topic from the viewer themselves.
Okay, yeah, let's hear it.
Great. So I'm in America. You sound like you're American. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm in the Virgin Islands.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you probably appreciating some of the tax benefits over there, huh?
Um, no, not really. For me, I'm a wage earner and I don't pay federal taxes, but I pay territorial taxes, which come out to about the same thing.
Right. Okay.
Um, and I don't. You can buy like watches and stuff here cheap, or diamonds, I guess, relatively cheap. But I'm not usually looking for watches and diamonds.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit about your experience that you've had? Yeah, I'm assuming that you moved to the to the islands.
Yeah, a little over a year ago.
Great. Great. Great.
Yeah, it's been. I work in the industry of healthcare. It's been a little bit different from the states. I'm still figuring it all out.
Sure, right. So you're in the healthcare industry. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with the healthcare industry? Like from my perspective, I've seen a lot of separation between people that can essentially afford the basic necessities of healthcare, just due to where they were born and which like social and economic strata. Like people that are usually born into unwealthy situations and unwealthy families usually don't have the same accessibilities as people that were born into the higher levels of the social and economic strata. So can you tell me a little bit about some of the division that you've seen in those situations?
Yeah, definitely. I work with mostly poor people, mostly Medicaid recipients. I think everyone ultimately does end up getting their health care, but the divide is on when, how timely it is and how costly it's going to be. And for a lot of people in poverty, we delay their access to health care. They're sicker when they eventually do gain access, and then it costs all of us a lot more money. So I see it, as a very inefficient system that we have in our country, where if we did grant earlier access, it would, I think, result in tax savings for the average citizen and probably lower premiums for people that have private health insurance. Because what happens when they don't have, here we have a lot of like Haitian immigrants, a lot of down islanders, people that are undocumented. And when they come to our hospital, we're not going to say no. They may not get everything that a person with lots of money has. And then they're not going to end up paying their bill a lot of the times, and all of those things they get passed down to the healthcare consumer or patient who does have insurance. So we just end up charging more for everything. That's how you get your $100 aspirin. Well, that and a little greed, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's really good to hear. Like some of the things that I've realized is like other countries, we're one of the only developed nations that doesn't have access to something like a universal basic healthcare. We have places like Canada, and we have places like Europe. We have places all in the East that have already gotten to the point where they realize like having that accessibility is a whole lot easier if you're able to make sure that you're protecting your citizens and you're making sure that you want to make sure that they're healthy and they have the certain levels, so that they have the ability so that they can receive any adequate care that they would need to receive. So, what do you think is going on in the U.S. that's essentially forcing us to not provide adequate health care? And do you think it's a part of the capitalist system that has an incentive, a monetary incentive behind making sure that we do not allow something like universal basic health care?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question, but I think
Hey, you're the
back
guy, man.
in
You're
the
just
early
right in your alley.
back in the early 1900s,
Mm.
when the Europeans were doing this. I forget when the NHS in England was formed, but it was somewhere either very late 1800s, early 1900s. Everyone was doing it. Labor movement was huge. The labor movement was huge in the U.S.
Mm.
And ultimately, what results out of this is Medicare, which I think is a great program in the United States. And we're an incrementalist country, and I think if you go back to the 30s, I don't think there was a question that we were going to have universal health care. I think it was
Right.
assumed that we would,
Mm.
and that we would just maybe get there a little bit later than the Europeans. But
Right.
then World War II hit. And when World War II happened, we lost a lot of our male labor to the war. And so there was a lot of competition for jobs. And price freezes, wage freezes happened. Sorry, wage freezes. The government said, we can't have I think they were worried about inflation with the wages going so high. So they froze wages, and then employers had to compete for the labor with benefits. So the employer would say, well, I can't pay you more than whatever dollars an hour, but I can give you a company car. Or, I can't pay you more, but I can give you health insurance. And it was during the war that health insurance really became solidified as a property of your job, as a job benefit. And then we got tax breaks for it. So your employer, when they pay into your health insurance, that's pre-tax money. And that's how it became really engraved in the U.S. that we get our health care through our jobs. And I think that once you have something, it gets really scary when people, when you think they might take it away or you think it's under threat. And so I think a lot of these older employed Americans that have had steady jobs all of their lives, they get a little bit scared changing the system. And there's a lot of tax breaks for employer-sponsored health insurance, and I think that's what stopped universal health care. I think it's been employer-sponsored health insurance.
Yeah, man, I've seen a lot of hardship going on between like people that understand like how the system behind healthcare is essentially being used for a monetary gain, right? If I'm not mistaken, there's a company that recently opened up in my city or in the neighboring city that we have, and it was like a private healthcare industry or a private healthcare company where people would basically go, and it's seeming like we're moving more so towards a privatized situation where there's an economic benefit behind being able to provide people adequate care. And some of those things I think is kind of it makes it difficult for the average citizen to be able to do other things, because if you don't have that foundation of being able to be healthy, then you can't get to the point where you're self-sufficient enough to be able to like go to college or participate in the workforce or be able to save money or do all the things that you would need to do so that you can be a self-sufficient American and be a benefit to the entire society. Not only speaking from a health perspective, but also speaking from an economic perspective. And so I see it as a deficit for us to realize that we have so many people that are essentially either sick or don't have access to that healthcare, and they are not being a contributing member to society, and that is a self-revolving circle that hurts the American public, and then it just allows people that are essentially in the place where they're healthy and they're capable to continue to be successful. It's like a snowball effect that usually happens, right?
Yeah.
And have you ever read a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
No, but I'm familiar with. Is that the one with the tipping? I've read the Tipping Point or something.
Tipping Point. That's a really good book,
I
man.
don't think
I really appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
don't think I read it one.
Yeah, for the viewers, Tipping Point is a really good book if you're interested in how fashion and trends and things pick up speed, and it goes into a lot of information about how you can make things like attractive enough so that you can start a movement. If you're interested in how to start a revolution, read Tipping Point. Now, if you're interested in understanding the difference between like how people are able to have access to the things that you would need so that you can be successful, and how that separation is usually created by a luck factor, then read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. Just to give you a brief summary about it, it basically goes into like how people that were ultra successful got to the point where they're ultra successful, right? And just to make